Recording. What's up?
My apps. Okay. UI builder. We're recording? We're not.
Yes.
Okay. So UI builder. What is the UI builder? Basically, there is one main concept that we need to understand about the UI builder. And we try to follow it everywhere. And this is basically, if you need to remember one thing from this conversation, from this long conversation, is this concept that will remain for the next short and long and medium term for sure. You know what? Let's start different. Let's start with the composition of the screen. Okay, just to give an idea. So the UI builder screen is composed of different components. I mean the app builder. So we have here on the left panel the main navigation of the UI builder. Okay, so these tabs are configuration tabs specific to section or to a topic, and this is like something that is generic configuration of the app. So you can configure your screens, your navigation, your content feeds, plugins. I assume there will be here in the future analytics and things, player maybe, things that requires specific configuration. So this is the main navigation of the UI builder. Then the screen is composed out of 3 more elements or sections. You have this, which I call either secondary navigation or actually contextual navigation. So within a tab here, the left panel is allowing you to add elements that then could be configured. You have the central, that it's a preview, that it's mainly for illustration reasons and to provide some insight of how each element that you chose on the left panel will look like, to give a sense of feeling. And then you have on the right panel, it's the configuration panel of the component. Now, when I'm saying component, this is exactly what is the main thing that we need to remember. When you do something in the UI builder, and this is something also when you do training to customers, this is very important because it simplifies a lot of concepts. You choose an element that you want to appear in your app, you provide it a data source, and you customize it. This is like across the section, we're trying to keep this consistency. So it's a screen that you're adding, and then you're connecting it to data source, and then you're customizing it. Then you add a UI component. You are adding a UI component, and you provide it a data source, and you customize it. And you're adding a navigation. You provide it a data source or elements, and you customize it. We try to do it across the apps, across the sections. The only, there are a couple of tabs that are different, like inherently cannot behave the same way, things that are not UI related. So feeds, for example, you provide data to the feeds. You have insights tabs, which doesn't have any configuration. But the rest is kind of consistent. If one thing you need to remember and you need to provide the customer with this knowledge is this. You choose your element that you want to appear, you give it a data source that you pre-configured or created on the fly, and you customize it with cell style, blah, blah, blah. That's main. Then we have 2 other elements here on the screen. One is a toolbar. It's this thing, which is contextual to the tab. you're dealing with screens, you can do save, preview, stuff like that. If you're dealing with feed, you can do search. Like this is contextual toolbar. And one important thing is the layout selector. What is a layout? A layout basically is one instant of composition of your app. So the full list of screen with the components connected to feeds and with navigations that constructing your app. This is a layout. Currently in production, you can only use one layout at a time. So it means you can publish one composition of your app across your versions that you're building. And with that being said, one important thing is
You're back. You can. I mean, you can.
okay. Where are we? Where are we? UI builder. No, I don't know where am I. Okay. So, so a layout, and this is very important. The layout is your composition of your app, basically. Is the way you want your app to appear. Now, one important thing, very important, and this is it's a guideline that is strict and you must follow it. When you are playing with the UI builder, you should work on a layout that is not your production layout, unless you are building the app and it's not released and no one is working on it, like only in the bootstrapping of your app. Okay. So when you have a new version, a new app, you have your whatever your production layout and you can play with. But once you have something on air or something that anyone else is using, the guideline will be that you will save, you save as, I think we will change the name to duplicate, and we will duplicate the version and we'll call it runs test, whatever. Once you do that, you have your new version, your new layout created, and you can play and you will not affect anything in production, and you can play as much as you want. In order to be able to see the results of what you're working with, within each layout, in the toolbar, you have a preview button that you can scan on your production app, on your production environment, and check to see the results. One pitfall regarding the preview is that every change that you're doing, you need to rescan in order to to see the results. I'm gonna change it.
An important point here, though, is also to notice that the feeds are the same feeds across layouts. It's not that
Yeah.
one layout is
So-
one feed and the other one is a different.
True. So you have actually you have 3 tabs here that are not in a context of a layout, which is the feed section, which you manage globally, which means that if you want to change a feed that you know that is in use in production, don't do it. Create a new one and use it on your QA layout. Otherwise, you might mess your production.
Question: would it be possible to add something to the feeds like used by components 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Can think about it as a feature request. And
Just like information, it will help avoid like pitfalls.
again, I talked to Jonathan about it.
Just thought
There
about it.
needs to be a way for support to be able to have a report that this is one
What's-
example of what's needed, maybe. But again, it's a good request. But
Already.
by the way, if you try to delete,
No, we already
if you
have-
try to delete, it will.
No, there is.
What happened to my? If you try to delete, by the way, it will tell you in the pop-up if
It's
if
related
it's
to-
in use.
Oh.
Okay,
Okay.
but
Right.
but be careful with that. So this is layout. Now let's talk about how you configure, and again about concept. So as you can see here, the tabs allow you to navigate not as a wizard. So it's not a step-by-step. So you can work whichever way you're comfortable with working. You can first configure screens, then add data source, then connect data source to screens, etc. It's up to you what to do. And as I said, important thing is that the feeds are not in the context of a layout. So they are global. You can use each feed that you are adding here, could be used across the layouts. So how you configure, okay? Let's talk about screens. So you're adding a screen. Let's go to a, as I said, not to play with this. Let's go to another layout. You're adding a screen. Basically, we have 2 types of screens at the moment. It will grow as much as we add all the, what we call white label screen here. Mostly we'll use general content. General content is like a composed screen that is composed of different components. Once you add this, we will work on the left panel here. We know that there are some bugs, like when you add an element, it adds it in a sporadic position, and you have no way to filter. So this should happen soon, during the next 2 weeks, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
If like this is the plan.
This is the plan for this,
for development cycle.
yes.
And, if we do it, we do it, and if we don't,
Yeah,
we'll see.
the plan is to be able to have a more organized left panel. So you will be able to filter screens and
Anyways, about that note, any changes, like we're planning to do some changes in the CMS along the way. So the way we will do it is that we will, first of all, I will show support, how to do it, and I will also internally show everything, how it works. And then we will roll it out. So you get notice, and it's basically only when everyone is, we have a list of people that are relevant. After everything is set, we will release it.
yeah. So once you add a screen, you can configure the screen, providing it a name. Important addition that is related to navigation is the need to set the home screen. So I will show, after this, I will show the new navigation and how you configure new navigation. It's very important that you will select your home screen. Basically, when you will start working on a new layout, it will automatically, your first screen will automatically have the home screen. The system doesn't allow you to have a layout without a home screen. Just make sure that you are setting the one that you want. It's related to navigation, basically to the first screen that will appear in your app. And one important thing regarding cell styles. When you choose a screen, you need to set which cell style family it uses. We don't allow mix and matching at the moment. So in order to be able to use specific cell styles for your app, you need to first choose which family your screen is using. You can mix and match between screens, but you cannot mix and match between components. Once you choose that, I don't know, probably yes, we're gonna change completely the way we work with cell styles. So you will have the ability to do whatever. We will remove the terminology of cell style family. It will be something else, but not in the next 3 months for sure. So we're still having this concept. Once, yeah,
the home tab.
Yeah.
What's like the purpose of that? Besides just instead of using a screen ID into like whichever home screen you want to be that.
So because it's like I will show that now you will configure the navigation within the UI builder. So it's not anymore a collection on Applicator 2 that the first item will be your home item. You will need to say, I want this to be my home item, even if it's the third item. So I would show now when I will show the navigation, but this is something that you need. When I'm talking about navigation, I'm talking the root navigation of the app, so not tabs within one screen. So it's like a side menu, like what are bottom tab bar that is controlling the entire navigation of the app. So yeah, and now we are working on advertisement per screen, interstitial and banners. This will be released hopefully soon with the help of, so this is done on Android with the help of the EU. It will be done on iOS as well. You will have the ability to configure your ads, DFP ads, within a screen and not in Applicator 2. Related to the question of your extensions. The moment only DFP. Part of the EU help will be to build the advertisement pluggability system infrastructure that will allow you to add more. But also at the moment, non-UI builder app can only use DFP. To a certain extent, it's true. I don't think any of our apps in production using advertisement. It's not DFP, but maybe I'm mistaken. Anyway.
At the moment, we have these options here, but they're not active, right?
No.
If I put something in the DFP app unit, it won't work.
No, and you will not see this section as well. So don't be worried. You don't see this advertisement section if you will use your user.
I do.
I do.
Certain components.
Within a component, and
Yeah,
I'm not even sure that now it's still on. We can check now.
Not now, but somewhere I saw.
Yeah, you saw it before because it's hidden by a feature flag. So we are playing and exposing and not so.
Okay.
It's also a comment that I said to the guys of support. Sometimes one user will see some things and another user will see other things because we're experimenting, we're trying things, and we're trying to roll out specific things to see reactions, to check it ourselves, and stuff like that. So these are the screen configuration. They are very basic. A part of choosing like your layout, your theme of your screen, which family you're using, and naming, you don't have a lot here. Once you do that, you're able to add components. So let's, I don't know, add 2 components. And again, the logic will be the same. When you choose a component, you're connecting it to data source. And you are setting item limits, some specific rules. You're choosing cell style. If you want to select a header or no header or whatever. Important thing, on the right side, we don't have any form validation. So it's prone to errors. So the idea was that you don't need to configure everything at once. So you can jump from one place to another. But when you jump from one place to another, you might forget to check like the cell style or to check the data source, and then things will not appear. We're thinking about adding this kind of validation, but we need to see what we want to do. So again, adding a screen, adding components, choosing a data source, and customized by choosing cell styles and other parameters.
Sometimes you have cell styles that appear in a family and they don't actually exist. Is there a way to know?
What do you mean don't exist?
Let's say a horizontal list. I don't know, you're now in Colorado, they have an horizontal list, but then you can go into, I don't know, Hato, and they don't have a horizontal list, but it will appear. You'll be
In
able
the
to
list.
select it.
It's a issue that basically it's a bug in the manifest, and you should report, and we can fix
Is it
it.
done? No.
Basically,
We don't know as users what to select. I mean, we think we're selecting something that exists, and the app doesn't work, and we don't know why.
if you have something like this, you need to tell us.
Where do you report that?
What?
Like, where do you?
Zapp
Zapp support.
Just Zapp support. Like, hey, there's
Zapp
this
support,
bad
and
this.
support will take it with Zapp.
Yeah.
If they
Yeah.
don't respond.
The better solution would be each family has basically has two you have two use cases. One is that you know the family because your team is the owner of the family, and you know you don't have header free, for example. So you say.
Yeah.
The other one is that you don't know if there is an header free, and I would suggest to first consult the app family owner, ask them if they have it, and then support But basically, in most cases, you are using your own families, but there are some cases.
No, many uses Colorado. Many uses Colorado, which we
Colorado
Own it.
was
Where-
the
where
most
can we
popular,
see-
but now
Where can we see the owner of
USA, for example.
of a cell style family. I'm not sure that you can see the owner. Maybe in the sketch file.
yeah, you know,
Yeah.
you need to know
Yeah,
geography.
Yeah.
Where is the river?
Oh, their names like by territory.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Remember,
I get it now.
But like, why are there like more options of like headers that like don't exist if they don't exist in the family? Like, why is that even an option?
It's a bug.
It's okay.
If it's an option that is not supposed to appear, it's a bug. Should report it. So basically, that's it. Now
So simple.
it's that simple. Now let's talk about one advanced, not advanced, but let's talk about a use case which you guys normally have. So let's say that you build a screen, and the screen should have the purpose of the screen is to serve multiple data sources. So for example, a show screen. Show screen doesn't have a data source because it's dynamic. It should use it should be the same screen, and one time serve the voice, and the other time serve I don't know, survivals. The other time save the rising star or whatever. So you go to the system and you building your show screen, and then you think, oh, I don't know what to put here. Okay. So then what you need to think is about two things. First, we have a feature that allows you to connect a screen or to trigger a screen within a component. So let's say that I have an all show screen. And within the all show screen, let's say I have a grid and I have a list and I have a banner, okay? And let's say that my grid, each element of this grid is promotion of whatever shows that I want to promote. And every time I tap on one of the shows, I should open the show screen, and the show screen should know to present the relevant data. So what we do, we're saying that this grid has a target screen, and it's connected to, let's say, our show screen. This means that each and every element that you will press on this grid component will open the show screen. Now, it doesn't work like magic. the way it works is that according to your view within this targeted screen, the data should correlate somewhere. The data should fit. So let's say there's no board here, there is a board. It's a little bit complex, but let's try to understand. I can delete here. Mhm. So let's say that this is my all shows. Let's say that I have here a grid, and I want each element of this grid to open my show screen. And this show screen, let's say that it has a list. No, let's say this. Let's say it has an image, then that it has a list. Okay. And let's say that here I have a list, and from here I want to trigger a special show screen that has an image and has tabs. Okay, and under the tab you have list. Okay. So, in order to be able to populate this screen within this element, the data source should be constructed in a way that the components will need to populate it. Now, remember the thumb rule. A component should have a data source in order to populate data. This follows here as well. In order the image to show something, it should have some sort of data source. In order for the list to show something, it needs to have a data source, right? But we don't configure the data source manually because it's dynamic. This means that the data source that you put here, each one of the elements within the data source, each one of the elements within this data source should contain content that could be mapped to two components. So it means that if this is a list, and this has the voice, let's say, and it has survivors, and it has rising star, okay? In order to be able to populate here, each one of these should have two children that are feeds to populate here. So it has to have an image data source. Basically, you should have a feed that contains an image, and should have a feed that contains a list of episodes, let's say. Okay? The data source. Otherwise, we're trying to do like smart guesses, but not always possible. So for example, if the voice will have only one feed, we will put it here and we will not present anything here. If the voice will have three feeds, we will present the first two and the third will not be able to populate because it doesn't have any component. So we're trying to do educational guesses, but basically the content should fit the components. And let's say for this should be the same. One data source will go here and the other data source will go to the tabs, and then you need within each one of the tabs, this is like a more complex, each element within the tab, let's say that I have seasons here. So each one of the seasons should contain a feed of episodes, let's say.
How would you obtain that de facto? Would you use, for example, a manual feed that contains two feeds inside, or
Now, if the customer wants to present two components, it needs to have a data feed that contains two
but
elements.
here in the all shows, you have a grid, and you have one data source there that needs to point to two different places. How do you do that? How do you take
So the data source, the way it looks, it's a list. The data source is a list of items. It has feed one, so the voice feed.
No, it's entry the voice and inside to.
And inside you have a link to another feed. No, it's entry of type feed, and each one of these feed contains a link.
Okay, that's in the XML.
XML, JSON,
What if
whatever.
I'm doing this manually?
If you're doing this manually, you need to build it's the same. You just build it manually.
With a manual feed?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's no difference. Manual, not manual. You need to make sure that, just think about this. Each component needs to have a data source, or explicit, or to, I don't know, like to be provided by the caller, the one that is targeted.
I'm not sure how relevant it is, but in this CMS, the hierarchy of like feeds is different for iOS and Android, and so it causes.
Only for things that are using application.
Yes.
No, but
Talking beyond.
I'm talking about,
Okay, so just
forget
saying
about
it's relevant
application
if we're no
2.
longer talking about it.
And by the way, I think that this was resolved for Android, so it should copy the same thing on iOS. I'm not sure that the latest that it was published yet,
Okay.
but I think it should be resolved. But again, the concept is for each type of data source that you're using. So this is one way to be able to target from a component a different screen. Another possibility to target from a, now, okay, so the problem here that this allows you only to trigger one type of composed screen. So you cannot, let's say that I have these two screens. With this logic, you cannot trigger from within the same component different screens.
Could you add something like the data source determines what kind of screen?
So this,
opens up?
yes, you can do. Within the data source, which is not something that you have control, it's something that the developer has control. You can say for each one of the elements within the feed, which screen to target. Then you have as much control as you want.
Just with the screen ID.
And this is using the screen ID. You can inject it to your data source if you have a developer, or if you're using Applicator 2, you can set it in CMS.
API stuff.
And this will work. And important thing about that. So this logic is only talking about a composed screen, what we call general content. But all the white label or item screens, like video player, article, photo gallery, web view, stuff like that, will work out of the box. So let's say that you have here all shows, and you have one item that is the voice, and the second item is a VOD item. It will know to open as a player, even if you can. It will know to open the player, even if you configure a target. Okay, so you can mix and match entries with feeds, and it will know how to trigger it. You just cannot trigger different composed screen, different general contents. If you have any issues like you said, Shana, you need to tell it to us, and we need to resolve it, okay? That's that.
It's in the list we gave you earlier.
That's all. Question regarding screens. Should be fairly straightforward. Doesn't have a lot of magic or a lot of something that is super smart. You just choose your component, you provide a data source, and you choose your sales type.
Connected is just to lead from a component to another screen.
To another general content screen. Yeah. It's a common use case. Like you have all shows and you want to open your show screen.
I have a question. I have a question. With the screen picker, what I did, for example, for a test, I used the manual page and each contained screens. And after I populated it, and each tab, each screen picker opened a different screen.
Yep.
I tried doing the same in the tabs, the same logic, and it didn't work. So
Yeah, tabs is something different. So a screen picker is a different component in terms that it populates a screen. When you populate a screen, you want to present the screen that contains. It's like an extra. It's like an extra level that you have. So this is why it probably didn't work for you for tabs.
That's what would be then the logic for tabs? If I wanted to open, because in tabs, what
in
the
tabs you
for
can
example, have
provide a
image
feed.
on top, and then the tabs, and then something else inside the screen.
Yeah.
But I want each tab to be open something else. So
You cannot open a screen within each tab. The only thing you can open because it's not a screen. It's a partial component.
Okay. Yeah.
There is a difference between a screen picker. Like I think it was more correct that within the system, like it's a product problem, that I think that when you choose a screen, a screen picker is more of a screen than it's a component within a screen. So it's like a screen picker screen that contains only one element, and then you connect it to different screens. But again, the concept is different. A screen picker and tabs is not the same component. A screen picker is a screen picker. You connect it to screens. A tab is a component within a screen.
So essentially, for a screen picker, you really only use the manual one and just combine as many.
You can also put non-manual. If you have data source that contains, let's say you want to show The Voice, I don't know, Survivors and Rising Star, you need to provide the feed. It should populate whatever you are connecting under it. If the feed is following what I explained, like with the, I think that it's more common to use the screen picker with manual feed, because normally you wanna populate screens within screen picker. But you can use it with connected data sources, and you can do like a delegation from one component to another to another to another. That screens. Important thing, and this is like a guideline. Don't work on production layout. Work on testing environment, on sandbox, and it's production. And the only annoying thing is that you need to scan every time that you do change. But it's not that annoying, and this is something that we will resolve soon. Question about screens. Silence. No questions? If you have done, yes.
No, I'm not sure. Can you go through the all shows and connect it again? Just to make sure. So this is the show screen. The component is connected to the show screen.
Yeah.
And now go to the show screen.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. So you can see in the show screen that it's targeted by the all shows grid, and you cannot put data sources.
Ah, okay. Mm-hmm. So the data source needs to come from the up.
From the
It
parent.
has to have a drill down inside, and it would know that the next step go to the next go to the next screen.
So you can see that the target screen is the screen which will open once the user clicks on an item within a current component.
And can we? And that's what you said. You can like do the whole chain and connect it. Okay.
So from this list, you can say I want to open another one.
Mm-hmm.
My
then
whatever.
As long as you have it all set up right.
Yeah, the feed should be correct. Yeah.
But it makes like a data source of like an XML is an XML is an XML.
Yeah. Normally, I don't think about the use case that you use more than two. And even that is not very common.
Is there anything with the connection to the old top level show, season, some generic?
No, it's very generic. Everything is a feed. Everything is a feed. Because I don't know what is all show. I don't know what's top level.
All shows, Survivor, season, and then you have episodes, clips, the contest.
But this is exactly this.
And then you have another, and then only the but yeah.
It's the same thing. There is just no distinguish between top level, season. I don't care, basically. It's not like the component is stupid. This is why it's important to understand. You provided the data source, and it will populate the kids of this, the children of this data source. That's it. Doesn't know anything.
Can we talk about purchases and how it affects it? Shows VOD versus season.
It's not related. If an item is locked, you should have a lock sign within the sales.
Applicaster 2 has the whole show season item vouchers. Do you know what it is?
Yeah, but why is it related? The component is populated.
If there's any connection.
No, the component is stupid. You give a data source, it populates it.
No, but then how do you have like a season voucher? Because it was dependent on the season category. Do you understand? Do you know how the hierarchy works there?
No, I don't know the vouchers connection. I'm not sure there is a...
It's worth it to check.
Okay, I don't know.
By the way, yesterday we put together an app Colorado, where the broadcaster is free, the item of VOD was free, and we got the lock asset. Although when you click on it, it opens correctly.
So it's a bug. There are bugs, not only that. There are more.
I had a question about the components.
Mm-hmm.
For the tab bar, is it possible to do more than just one feed within a tab? Right now, like you can only do, no, that's not possible.
The tabs is very limited. First, all the tabs will look the same. They all could have either a list or a grid. You cannot provide multiple, and you cannot play with the cell styles separately for each one of the tabs. It's a very limited component.
Yes.
In the future, yes.
Future,
The future will tell.
More cell styles for the tab.
Yeah.
The idea that when we will have the new UI framework, it will be agnostic to the component or to whatever. You will be able to do whatever. But time will. We are not going to change it, let's say, in the next month and a half or two. This is not going to happen.
Like
Not in the current cycle, and probably not in the next one. This leads us a month and a half ahead that we won't work on it.
I'm saying when you go into not a tab, a normal list, and you have say cell style with metadata, one without, one with the play button, one without, one with the lock, one. They're like we have different cell styles that maybe it's the same cell, but with small differences. That
Yeah, this is the limitation of our families.
This is
why we decided to change, to do something else. More. Okay, feeds.
Maybe show them the new and the old.
I think this is the. I don't know. I'm not sure it's deployed with the new feature flag. It's deployed.
Yeah.
You remember what is the feature flag?
Yeah, manual feed something.
Create manual feed for component.
no longer auto saving when you put something.
No, this I have. There's another one.
No more. What?
Create feed.
No, right feed is open too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have no more.
You sure it's enabled? Because I see I can edit here. No, I'm not sure it's deployed.
Sure.
It's on dev.
So I go to the.
Won't be like that.
Okay, so feeds. I'm gonna show we did some changes there that we're gonna deploy because we reported issues, and we consolidate the experience to be similar across it without auto-saving. That was what we understood buggy. And as you can see here, this is what will happen. So this is only a list of your items. If you will want to create new, we'll be able to do it from here. Same thing as you had there.
This isn't the manual feed.
This is not the manual feed, yeah. And you can create it from here. You can edit it from here. Can delete it. And this is very basic, but I will show a couple of things here. One important thing here is about installing new data source providers. So if you want to use new data source that are not installed, you need to install it, as you can see. Let's say that I want Televisa. So I will install it. Once it's installed, you're able to use the types there.
I have a question about that. Sometimes the developers, saying Televisa, they report that they updated their manifest, they have a new version, and in NPM it's a new version. But here still you don't.
Because they made a mistake in their manifest. They had a mistake in their manifest.
That's fine.
Yeah.
You had it, I had it, that's a good Televisa. I've seen it several times already.
Yeah, because they didn't. No, it's related to, so when a developer is publishing a plugin, in order for the system to know that this is something new, he needs to bump the version number.
Yeah.
And once they don't do that, the system doesn't know that you are able to update.
As in, like, if I go to NPM, you see that it's a new.
Yeah, but it's not related. When a developer, again, it's not for this session, but when a developer is publishing a plugin, the plugin has two levels. One is the code of the plugin. It needs to be published to GitHub, to NPM, to whatever. And the second thing is to introduce it to Zapp so the system will know that something new was published. There's no magic that the system will know when a new something will be published. So once they inform, I published version 2.0 and the previous one was 1.0, Zapp will allow you to update. If they don't do that,
And is that immediate or does it take time?
it's immediate. Well, it's immediate if you like if you're in the page and they just publish, it's not pushing it. You will need to refresh the screen.
Yeah.
And once you do that, you can install. This is running a build of the data source provider code on Circle CI. And once it finished the build, it notifies Zapp and you're able to use the new data source provider. So it's either install or update. Important thing about that, this is a change.
To work, you need to create a new version, a new build of the app.
No, you don't. So when you install here or you update, it's remotely updating everything. You don't need another build. It's the only case where you don't need a build when updating a plugin. It's the only case. So that's that. And then manual feed, the way it will work is when within a component, when you will choose the type, or actually when you will want to create new feed, it will be contextual to the component. So you will be able to create a new feed. And the same form that you had before.
But now from the component.
Yeah.
And so the label, if you're using a header, it's going to be taking the label.
What is the label? What do you mean?
Like
The name?
If you're using that data source and then your component, you want a header, is that the name it's going to be taking?
The header?
Does the name of the data source have
Yeah.
in relation to content?
Yeah.
That's going to.
Yes.
In the past, for example, we've seen, let's say, in the output we're getting, that there's a difference between where the header name is taken in iOS and Android. In Android, it was the title of the XML, of the entire XML, while in iOS, it used to be from Applicaster 2. So how is it?
But there is no Applicaster 2.
Right.
It's,
So that's my question. How is it working here? If you have just a feed here.
should take the name of the label
The label should be the header.
of this. Yeah, because this is the name of the item that you are.
So essentially,
No,
can
but
customize
wait.
the name of the header.
No, sorry. It will take the feed. If you are putting it here, it will take the name of the feed. It's a header. A header is not for an item. A header is of a component.
Okay, yeah.
So it will take the name.
The
It
feed
should
name.
take this one.
So essentially, what I'm saying, I can customize the header.
If you're
Yeah.
using manual feed.
Okay,
If you're using manual feed
yeah.
on. Yeah.
But if it's not manual, the XML, for example, you could prepare
The XML should
title.
contain the name of the feed. In the feed itself, the upper level of your feed has a name
You
attribute.
have title of the.
So let's say I'm creating this manual feed, and now it's adding it here, and you can add it contextually. That's it, basically. So that's the new use case that you contextually connected to a component. That's that. Question about, okay, so preview. And this is more for developers. You're able to see the way the feed is parsed within our apps by pressing this. So
Is this view after it was parsed, after it passed through the data source provider?
yes, after the data source provider. Because the URL itself should allow you to see the original. This one is parsed. This requires a plugin developer permission. if someone is asking you why I'm not seeing this, it's only for plugin developers. There's no need for users to see them. Question regarding feeds.
Feed types, just quick review.
They are endless.
I know, but like what we have today.
We have endless.
I have a
Depends on the
question.
day.
Wait. Can you go to the top for a second?
What was the
No,
question?
inside the feeds, the types.
Feed data type review.
You have, if you go to the beginning of the list, you have the collection category, Atom RSS, Applicaster, and then you removed the generic ones?
No, you showed.
It depends on on your source.
Because there's, for example, twice Atom XML and twice.
Yeah, if you're that's right.
There is one that is doubled because you can use it via Applicaster or via the general provider.
It doesn't matter which one we choose. It seems
We
not.
should choose the general, but it's there for historical reasons, not to break what is already there. Otherwise, it will break. So,
Maybe change the name so they're not fully identical.
They do the same.
but they do the same, so they
You
should be.
can put in brackets legacy.
So you can see it here. These are the generic one, and if you want to install, so you can see there are two options. Either I have an update or install. So updating means there is a new version. Installing just means to install. This is running a Circle CI service that publish all the bundles, and once it's updated, you can use the data types.
I have a question here.
Yeah.
You're actually installing here plugins. Now, could it be that if I install here a plugin, I'll still need to install a matching plugin in the plugin section in Zapp? Or
No.
is
This is the only place you should work on data sources.
That's just specifically for the data source, not the player.
This is only data sources.
Okay.
Will there be a connection with the plugin gallery to data sources? If there's like a plugin that determines something relating to a data source?
No, it's like contextual and non-contextual. So the plugin gallery allows you to see all the plugins. And then per section, you have specific plugins that you configure them, only contextual. So in screens, you only see the components. Plugins, in navigation, you only see navigations. In data sources, you only see data sources. And in the plugin gallery, you see all.
So I want to go back for a second to installation of plugins. Let's say YouTube, take that as an example. YouTube has two plugins, one for the data source, one for the player. So essentially, I don't have to use anymore, even though it exists. I shouldn't use the data source plugin in Zapp. I should use the one here.
It's the same. The one here and there is the same, but you should work from here.
Okay, so if I install from one place,
Use this. This is the place to manage
in
data
Zapp, I
sources.
should install the player plugin.
Will it cause problems if we add a plugin and also do this?
It's the same.
It might cause, it shouldn't be, but it might, I don't know, if you start playing with versions here, with versions there, it
Once we
might
get
cause
clients,
conflicts.
They're going to start messing shit around. We support
This effect, so if I'm installing here, it adds it to the version. Okay, if I move to the version, this will tell you that something is
Vice
not
versa.
installed.
So that means it's parallel. It's okay.
Yeah,
Just-
you'll see the plugin, I believe, installed here. and
Yeah,
then once your
But
plugin-
the opposite, would the opposite happen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that's not a problem.
We will resolve, it's a big issue that
If
we
you have
have.
problems, then let us know.
No, but the data source you shouldn't, because the data source is there.
So Zapp is select.
I'm making a risk, like coverage
No, just kidding. I think.
No, the data source is there for half a year or more. We don't have any issues with that. You should manage it here.
My intention was the other way around.
When you start playing the other way, it might cause conflicts. So use the data source here. It's also remote. When you do it from here, it updates remotely. It helps us resolve issues in production, potentially, and stuff like that.
Why is nicer?
It's more friendly. It's easier. That's it. Okay, let's talk about new sections. Navigation. We will release it by the end of the week. So basically, two things. First, whatever worked till now will work. And if not, our bugs, we are now like 3 weeks resolving because it was a complex task. We are still resolving issues, but basically, if you don't use this navigation and you keep on configuring it in Applicaster 2, it will work as it is today.
Now I can select it using the check mark in the general section. Right?
One
I can
second.
select which one.
Wait. If you continue work with your normal flow, you can use Applicaster 2. The recommendation once this is released, to use it from here. There are 2 things that you need to do. Because we're introducing it slowly, like we did with Zapp pipes, doing everything we need to support like 3 generations down the pipe. And you can see once it's finished installing, just back to the feeds, you can see it's finished installing and you will be able to see JW platform and you can see that you have these 4 types that you now can use. Yeah, so 2 things needs to happen. If you wanna, and this is something that's very important. Currently, you don't manage your builds within the UI builder, which means that in order to have effect of many of your things, you need to build a version. Once you build a version, you basically can play with it using the UI builder, right? If you don't have a build version, doesn't matter what you will do in the UI builder, will not work. Navigation. We created a manual. I think Shira did an introduction, like she did a demo.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be new, but let's talk about it again. If you wanna make sure, okay, so the guideline is this. Once we release each app that is using the UI builder, we recommend to configure the navigation within the UI builder. Why? What are the benefits? Let's start with the basic ones. Uploading time. We reduce, using this, you reduce 2 network requests to our servers. So it means that we reduce 2 network requests, we reduce, I don't know, a lot of time before the app is loaded. Yeah. A lot, I mean, between milliseconds to a second, right? It's a lot of time. This is one. The second thing is that you don't need to configure it in Applicaster 2. So you bring the configuration to one place. The third thing is that it allows you to customize it remotely. So you don't need to build when you change styling of each one of these navigation, right? The tedious thing of going to change styles and just build all this. All the configuration of the navigation is configured remotely and you can change on the fly. Fourth, you're able to compile your app with multiple navigations and then change it remotely. So if you compile your app, and this is important, if you compile your app, if you press the build button and you have multiple plugins within that build, you're able to switch without a new build. So if you build your version with a side menu and a bottom bar, when the app will be on production, you're able to play with it and change, okay? And it adds additional features that we didn't have for navigation bar, mainly. So like an ability, I will show now the configuration, but the ability of, this is not a good app. Let's see what will be there.
Yeah.
So let's say that you want the bar state to be logo center, to show home, to have it overlay like on top of the elements below it, or you want not to have the top bar at all, like if you have a bottom bar or something like that. I don't know, to play with the fonts, to play with the colors, to change remotely the logos, etc. All these are the benefits, right? I don't see disadvantages in using it. So like, I would say each new app, once it's released, and it will be by the end of the week, each new app that is released with UI Builder should use that. Like, don't use the,
Question though, for Chromecast, it's still going to be tied to the CMS because that's where we have our Chromecast apps.
so you have an app for Chromecast, you need to configure the app ID of the Chromecast within application. Because Chromecast is a global configuration.
But when you go here into the Chromecast option, it tells you to put the app ID, the Chromecast app ID, in the general.
Yeah, I
section,
know, in the tool.
which requires the build.
Yeah, but this is not published yet. So it's,
But when it will be published, then it will mean that a change in the Chromecast ID, or if you want to configure now, let's say the broadcaster now wants the Chromecast and he has the ID, then I'll need, it will require a new build and a new submission to store.
it's not required a new build if it's come from application too.
It's saying here that it will be, once it will be published, that the ID itself will be in the general section.
No,
Here.
it's not.
Not the general.
Yeah, but it's okay. It's not published yet. There are issues there that we know. It's not published yet. I'm telling you what will happen. You will need to configure a Chromecast app ID because Chromecast is not a navigation element.
Yeah.
It has a representation within the navigation,
Right.
but it's not the only place.
Yeah.
So it's correct that it will have a global place to set the app. Here you only manage the icon if you want to present it in the top bar or no. Maybe you don't. Maybe you want only in your player.
For apps that are already released on the web builder, if we want to switch from using the CMS to navigation,
You will need to release a new version.
we don't have to deprecate or anything.
No. It will fall back. Whatever is released will fall back to whatever you currently have. So yeah. Again, what I'm saying is that when you release a new version, first test it, of course, and don't do it in production. Like do it on a separate layout.
But then wait, if you're saying fallback, so fallback, it can mean that you can actually have two apps, two versions of apps released, that each version looks completely different. Because they can have the side menu collection, and Applicator 2 saying open category A, B, C, and here I put some.
You need to manage smartly your app, so make sure that your data is
Then
correlated.
if I don't update in both places and deprecate, then the apps will look differently. The versions will look differently, right?
It's the content.
Okay.
There's no way to create a version to be outside, like an APK or or something, that is not in the production layout, right? Only preview.
To release a version that is not in the production
Because
layout, at the moment you
QA
cannot.
something.
No,
Well,
but you don't need. But you need.
What about testing with applause or just sending to the client to verify?
Tell applause to scan.
Of course, I understand. I don't think it's always the best option.
You
but
can
sure.
send them the barcode. You don't need to
Yeah.
open the app.
True.
Just send them the
Send them the barcode.
Applause testing as well, like full
Yeah.
sanity tests.
Send them a
send
link,
the barcode.
generate the barcode, and send it to them. The barcode is only like a URL in the end of it. They don't need
No,
anything.
I'm
Just send it.
thinking about it's a version with different plugins and stuff like that. So you need to have a build. Yeah, a downloadable build.
You have a build. You
have
send them a
downloadable
build.
and then you do all these changes in UI Builder. But there may be situations, I'm not sure, but I'm
Mhm.
thinking about it, where like the build doesn't completely correlate with
Basically,
tests you want to do in UI Builder.
basically, the build should correlate to a layout
Yeah.
because you want to test things. It should correlate, and the way it goes is the other way around. You have the build in your hand,
Mm-hmm.
and with that build, you scan the app, the device that has the build. You scan the barcode. So this is your experience inside this specific build.
And you can you can play with your production app in the store, scan your layout, and check what happens.
Yeah.
It will not change the code. It will just try to populate this layout. So this is what I would do to go on the safe side.
From my experience, it's actually better to be in production, not in QA. Because in QA, it could be that.
What is QA?
in the app?
Application.
Let's say you have a debug version of the app,
Mhm.
not to be in QA server, because then it could possibly not correlate. Let's say the screen ID won't be the same. Or something like that. In Applicator too.
saying is that you need to test everything in production.
Yeah.
That's it. Now you have a sandbox within Zapp. You have a problem with the current navigation in Applicaster 2. You cannot have two in parallel. So you cannot test two different navigations. You affect automatically production.
Yeah.
But with this, you're able to test also your navigations. And another thing is that we added a new plugin, a new type of navigation, which is a full screen, like a full screen list that allows you to put headers, allows you to put more interesting things. So we have this ability. One important thing that it's a pitfall of the system at the moment is that if you first time adding a new type of navigation, you need to build your app in order to be able to see it. So it will not work. So I give you an example. Let's say that you now have an app and you get default side menu and a navigation bar. Okay, you open the app, you see the side menu there. You go. Now you want to add the bottom bar. Okay, so you added the bottom bar and you will scan it, and it will probably or crash or fall back to the side menu. It will probably fall back to the side menu because we have a fallback logic. If something doesn't exist, yeah.
So it's the navigation plugins that require a build, but not the plugins that are on the site.
Yes. So you need to add it here. Once you add it here, it will add it to your version automatically. You just need to press the build button. So if you have a bottom bar and suddenly you see a side menu, it's a reminder that you probably didn't build your app with this bottom bar plugin. Now, something that we will add, that it's not there yet, but we will do. We will add the ability for you to compile your version. Currently, when you switch navigation, it replaces. So if you have side menu and you will go here to the UI builder, and let's say that I have two-level menu, I'm not able to add more than one menu. So if I will delete the two-level menu, it will tell me that I need to change it with another menu. You cannot have an app without a menu, without one type of menu. So once I do that, I can choose again the same two-level, bottom bar, whatever.
Wait, what about all the content?
All the content will be deleted.
It will, like, once you switch, you can't just like revert back to.
No.
You have to rebuild.
Yeah, because the bottom bar cannot use the same type of elements as a two-level menu.
The
Right?
side menu.
Also side menu and the new two-level menu. The two-level menu have headers and have nesting and has different behavior, etc.
But with single level exists also inside of the side, the two level.
What?
I mean, the one level is supported by the two level side. If you know what I'm saying?
No.
I'm not using in the normal side menu. I'm not using nested screen, nested category. So that's supported by the.
Yeah, but the plugin doesn't know about the other plugins. They are completely non-related to each other. And a plugin is developed by another developer. You cannot know what you can copy and what you cannot copy. It's very complex knowledge. If you delete your navigation, you will need to recreate your items.
But the bottom tab bar, because if we're moving the navigation here, which is fantastic, if we're using like with the bottom tab bar some native screens and then we're using React plug, we can also add it as like
URL scheme, yeah. So I show you the options that you have. The two-level allows everything. So also bottom bar, but the bottom bar and side menu are subsets of the options here of the two-level. So I'm showing you the two-level. Like the bottom bar will only allow you EPG, screen, and URL or settings. I don't know. Won't allow you header and nest. So it's more than enough. And if you want to, also settings.
Screen, URL, or
basically, it's the definition of the plugin developer, whatever. When the plugin developer develops a plugin, it gets a pool of all the options, and it says, my plugin supports this, this, and that. So if Atanas and Pablo will say, we support settings, it will work. If they say we don't, you will not see it here. And once you choose that, you can do whatever you did till today. And the customization is the same as we have today. This is how the two-level React Native one looks like. You can have like, you know, center, all these kind of different configurations that you can have. So a lot to basically much more to gain than to lose. So I would say use it once we announce
Yeah, we're gonna.
the end of the
when
week.
you Release this, we're gonna update the UI builder.
Yeah, we're gonna release it by the end of this week.
Yeah.
So
We're not releasing yet the UI builder versions, but.
Yeah.
we're gonna-
and an
when we
important
release
thing,
it, it'll
if there are
be released
bugs, you need to report it like any other. So we know. Look, we've been testing it for over a month, and still things happens. Like I don't know, Chromecast now we had an issue, stuff like that. So tell us if you're suffering a problem. But again, if you will move your app to the UI builder logic, it will be much easier for us to tackle it than to start investigating some weird backwards compatible. So if an app is working in UI builder, put the navigation here. Remember two pitfalls. One is the build that you need to do. The second thing, if you want to compile your version with multiple plugins, talk to me and I will show you how to do it. Like to compile a version with bottom bar and side menu, and to be able to decide remotely which one to use.
Not multiple navigation buttons.
No, you cannot have multiple. Cannot have multiple in the same. You can have multiple, but to choose one. You cannot have. They don't coexist. And
you actually don't you just choose it here, which one you'll be using? If it's,
no, because the layout allows you to have one. At the same time, you can only have one.
So I can copy the layout, and then so I have what I did before. I would save, and then I make the new layout with the different navigation.
Exactly. This is an example of how you can do that. You need to make sure that you build your version, that the build you have contains the plugin. Otherwise, it will not work because the bundle itself doesn't know what to populate.
Yeah.
But
This-
essentially, if you have a release version with both plugins,
You can
just play it out.
remotely,
Yeah.
without release, without anything.
What would be another option to do this switch?
What do you mean? This is the only
Having
option.
another layout and then switching between production.
Using the plugin gallery, you can install as many as you wish. And then you can compile and use it. The second pitfall, important. So you manage your home screen within the screens. Okay, you can only have, of course, one home at the same time. When you go to the navigation,
Why do we have to select it as a home?
how will it know what is the home?
If it's the first in the list, no?
But if I want it to be the third?
Yeah, like live screen opens middle, one at the bottom.
If I want the tab, if I want the tab, the center tab to be my home, and not the most left.
Oh, so you're able to choose which tabs
Yeah,
too.
You're able to choose your home screen. Once you choose the home screen, this will be the screen that is populated regardless of where it is positioned.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's explicit. You need to say explicitly what is the screen. It's not an educated guess. If first, maybe it will work if you don't. If like the API maybe doesn't know. Maybe they did a smart fallback that will choose the first just not to crash. But I'm not sure.
It's
If
crashing.
it's crashing.
No, every app has their home screen.
Within the UI
It
builder,
shows the black screen.
within the UI builder, you cannot have a layout without a home screen. When you, like if you were using a blank layout and you will create a screen, the first screen will be the home. And then if you want to change it, will swap. The pitfall, when you go to the navigation and you choose navigation items, you need to make sure that your home screen appears in the navigation. Otherwise, I think a black screen will appear. Now, where it starts to become, so let's say you chose your home screen to be home, and you now need to say the item within the navigation. You need to have it there.
Wait, is that mandatory? What if the client doesn't want that?
The home currently you can't.
But the customer doesn't want what?
Doesn't want that home screen will appear in the menu.
Yeah, okay, but
Or
then how
or
do
it
you go
could
back
be
to
the
the home
first item
screen
in the
then?
menu.
Cannot do that.
Currently you can do.
Then how would you
Future
go back
maybe?
to it?
Future
No,
everything is
I'm just
possible.
saying-
In the future, everything is, but I don't. We don't have any use case like that.
You can call it something else.
How do you go back to your home? Like once I lost it, how do you navigate it back?
Maybe from another one. Yeah, it's,
There's-
doesn't matter.
Anything is possible. Just wonder if this is mandatory, so
You use the menu,
it's excludes other things.
It's mandatory.
If you're using a screen picker, that's the only component you can put on the screen. And you're marking that screen as your home. How do you choose which tab you want to open? Like that's a different screen. But like you would mark the screen picker. And
No,
Screen has three tabs.
so again, differentiate the concerns. A screen picker is a component within a screen, so the first tab within this screen picker will be chosen.
What if you
So
want
that
to know
doesn't
what
address
three
your
tabs
issue,
are?
Alyssa.
You cannot, of the screen picker,
Yeah.
you cannot.
If you
But
change
we
it
have
to
that in
top
ProSieben.
picture.
Exactly.
If you,
layout.
what?
That's what she has in ProSieben.
In
She has a
ProSieben,
screen
that's what we
picker,
have.
but it opens with the second tab.
You cannot within the screen picker, currently you cannot within the screen picker. A screen picker
Also
is not a
in
navigation component. A screen picker is not a navigational component.
Right.
It's a screen.
Yeah.
So the navigation doesn't know about the existence of a screen picker. It's a, yeah, I know.
Also,
Here
Here
it
it
is.
the second because you see the 4, but on iOS it just opens. the
Yeah,
middle.
so what we can do is to add a feature of the screen picker to select which
Yeah,
tab
screen
to open
picker
first.
should
But it's not
select it.
related to
It's not related to
navigation.
navigation. No,
Okay.
screen picker should be able. You should be able to choose which one opens on.
Yep.
That's-
But no, when
Also,
you
the
open-
the only thing that they also the families need to support it.
Families, what families?
The cell family need to, but it will work because they don't do anything there. It's always the same. They always use the same type of cell for the screen picker. Till now, 8 families. They don't have one that is like that and one is like this.
No, but they will need to change also
The component, the screen picker component, should be able to support another flag.
Yeah.
You need it for the ProSieben apps?
No, we need it for the.
Also, in Reshet, we have the same issue.
Media
You need it.
I just need it for that.
No, anyway, again, it's a feature that needs to be developed. At the moment, you cannot do that, but it's sounds to me very
I think
minor.
it's also it doesn't involve like
No, maybe a flag to choose the tab that you want to present.
do it with the manifest.
Then you
Yeah, no,
should be more
it's in the
clear.
manifest of the component.
Basically, in the current way that we work, a team can do it.
Yeah, if you need it, your
It's
team
not a
can do
Zapp,
it.
request.
I don't need to, there's no backend development required or anything. It's the component development, and you just add it to the manifest of this component.
and then you can customize what tab opens up as the.
Yeah.
Once it's developed.
Because they have the way to control the manifest. You know what a manifest is. I would just say
Explain it a bit. I know what it looks like, but what is it?
the idea, or maybe
No, go.
So correct.
I'm going to drink some.
The idea of a manifest is that so we would never know if I was wrong.
No, say.
The idea of the manifest is to allow the plugin developer to create his own settings in the Zapp CMS. Basically, this manifest conforms. It basically builds the
configuration
right
panel. Yeah.
the right panel. So they can choose whatever fields they want. They have a screen pick, no screen picker. They have like a text field, the color picker, all the select box.
What? Phone picker. Here is a phone picker.
So everything.
Here's
so
your phone
they
picker.
have, so with that, just a configuration file that basically says in some sort of a JSON, build me this form. That's it.
The idea is to allow the plugin developer to control, not to be dependent on the system. Like you can publish whatever. Now, we do enforce proper naming and
just
proper
the rule.
elements, and we also control core plugins. So these 3 types of navigation, we say what are the fields. And for screen picker and other UI component, we say what we want there. So if you need this, of course, you tell it to us and we say, yeah, it makes a lot of sense that you are able to choose a tab within the screen picker. Let's update the manifest and it will just appear. And then only the code of the component should be able to know how to deal with this parameter. That's it. That's navigations. It's very basic and the concept is the same. You choose a navigation, you add an item. Once you add an item, out of the pool of items that is allowed by the plugin. You choose it and you configure it. Mostly you configure the icon of it. On Chromecast, I think you can also choose the color of the button or something like this.
Yeah. That's the right now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
so that you can upload
That's right,
images.
it's
huh?
Zapp
yeah,
now.
and you can upload images directly from here. And
Where
we
do they use
By
the-
the way, I have a
SS3, right?
question. I have a question here. The assets arrow. You have one arrow. You have the arrow, but then there in Zapp there used to be two arrows.
Like
There's
arrows
one-
back and flick.
There's one to open the menu, and then there's a close the other direction to close it.
Arrow asset?
Yeah.
Click on it. Can you? Is it clickable in the preview?
Yeah. So there are two arrows in the assets and that.
Not that I'm aware of. And if there are, I don't think you need them. It's another headache to need to configure. You have the special button of the menu,
Because the close button, where is
and you have the close.
right? But there are two functions here. The close button would appear on top, right? When you open the screen.
This plugin is new. What it has, as you can see, it has this arrow of nested, and it has an X button.
When you click on the news,
When you click on the news,
so
you have this arrow.
Yeah, that's what he's talking about, right?
But this is the mirror of the other one.
So wait, let me explain. You have the arrow to open it, and then you have the close here. But when you open a new next screen, you have here instead of the X, you have the back.
It's not this plugin. This is a plugin. This is how it looks.
That's
where
how
is-
it's designed in this.
This is how the plugin designed.
That's what I'm
So
asking.
you could have a plugin that has your type of
You want another plugin, do whatever you want. I don't have a problem. Let's say here I want to put a side menu, okay? So the side menu has a different behavior. So the side menu has different type of configuration. It has an arrow, it has expandable arrow, which is this, you can see.
Mhm.
And it has this. So you have two arrows,
Yeah.
this and that. So it depends on your plug. Like the developer can define whatever arrows, whatever thing he wants.
Question: when you went to that place where you're choosing like the navigation item,
Here.
there was something called header.
Yeah.
I don't-
It's an item that is not clickable and it provides you sections. So it's not in the side menu, it's in the 2-level.
It's only
It's for the 2-level menu.
Ah, okay.
And here in the 2-level menu, you can see it's this featured.
Like,
But
can you
that's
click
not
on
that.
add
It's
item
not
for a second?
clickable.
Can you click on add item for a second in the control?
Mhm.
Now,
The header.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, in the header, you cannot do anything. You can just put a name.
Cool.
There's nothing to put here. Blah.
Each navigation item has its own.
Each navigation item has its own data, and you have what we call nested menu that allows you to put another level. So here you can add other items. Screen, when you choose a screen, you need to choose the target screen in the icon or not. You need to save.
Well, I shouldn't understand the header. Maybe
It's just a label.
navigation at the top, I was confused.
It's just a label. And again, if you have, when you start playing with it, if you have comments of usability, it will be nice to hear. Not only bugs, like also experience. That you know. But you know the two pitfalls that appears with the home screen and the required build.
If you select one screen as a home, and then in all the other screens, you still have the button. When you click on it,
It will replace the other one.
can there be some, what do you think, some sort of like, no, this is already configured in that screen, blah, blah, make sure like a warning message or something like that.
You have a notification that it was
Oh,
changed.
okay, great.
So if I'm choosing here, so if I want
No, it's very,
favorites to be home, it tells you the favorite screen has replaced the home screen as the home of the app. Okay. We will have here part of the, hopefully what we will work, you will have here an indication of what is your home screen. You will be able to filter it by home screen, by identifier, blah, blah. That's navigation. Let's do a sneak peek to plugin gallery and concepts.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Oh,
So
How beautiful.
the connection here is plugin gallery. Basically, is your place to know. It's a place to know which plugin your apps are using, and also to see the pool of plugins that you can use. As you can see, you can filter here by your plugin. Once you filter your plugin, you can see for each category how much plugin you have installed. There is still work of consolidation that needs to be done here. Like, I know that the regions, the way they work is that they publish using different identifiers for iOS and Android, and this creates duplication.
Yes.
So
Bottom tab bar and tab.
yeah,
Like
exactly. So this is something that Shira and Udi are working on doing. Yeah,
iOS
exactly.
plugins that are no Android plugins that are called iOS.
However, there are a lot of
Really? There's that? That's funny.
there are a lot of things.
We have one. We have one.
Just name everything.
Let's talk about two concepts here. Let's talk about two things. First, we have things that are called core plugins. These are built out of the box, and you don't need anything. Our SDK comes out of the box with this. These are all the UI components, list, grid, blah, blah, blah. It's a navigation bar, and it's the general data source provider. I think that's it. These are the core plugins and all the navigation items that you've seen in the menu.
Between the general and the applicator, because
And then, one of the.
And the analytic, Google Analytics, I think.
what's the difference between general and applicator? They both appear,
Yeah,
and
they both appear
one
and
is the
nobody
data source
knows they're
provider, which nobody knows.
The
What-
general is dealing with data that is generic. Atom RSS. It's not a proprietary knowledge of Applicaster.
but
URL, web URL. It's not the knowledge of Applicaster.
we do parse all these sets and all the
But it's a okay. So Applicaster
don't we have
is-
our own output?
Applicaster is a data source like Brightcove, like whatever. This is Applicaster data source. A general, it's something that is coming with your app out of the box that is dealing with generic data types. URL. It's not a proprietary content of Applicaster. XML, like Atom RSS. It's not Applicaster. Applicaster collection, it's Applicaster. Applicaster, whatever, Atom JSON is Applicaster.
But isn't the applicator also out of the box?
No, not anymore, I think.
So if you don't have a data source provider, if you say your broadcaster doesn't have his own data source provider, you must add the applicator. It's not automatic.
You will not be able to add feeds if you
Yeah.
don't have it installed.
Yeah, okay, so
So,
it's automatic for now.
so plugin gallery. So within the plugin, you have the version management and the data, like the plugin configuration that you can configure.
That's like whatever's in the manifest.
Yep.
So like I can have a JSON there because I have the JSON.
Mhm. And the addition that we added here is the possibility to have fonts that are system fonts or fonts that are uploaded to the app. And we added a file uploader, so you can upload file. I don't know, for assets, for whatever you need. So, and you can,
You will configure here like the UA number for Google or
yeah, it's the parallel of what we had in the modal there. Now, one thing regarding that. When you are in the context of the UI builder, when you add a plugin or update, it will go automatically to all the versions that you have. So
All the UI builder versions.
yes, all the UI builder versions, everything that you will add here will go to all the UI builder versions.
You need to, so then you don't need to like, let's say, no, that makes sense. What do you mean?
What do you mean exactly
Yeah.
by all the versions?
Because I'm thinking,
All the
OA
versions.
has a new SDK, so we need to make a new release. It's not going to also add it to all the older versions if the older versions are compatible with that new OA SDK.
So if it's not compatible, it will not add it. If the plugin will say it's not supported, it's only supported from SDK XYZ, it will not replace.
Okay.
The plugin developer, as it is today,
Okay.
like today you are not able to change a version that is not compatible with your SDK, the installation will skip. It will keep the old version. So it will not automatically build. We will do a connection to a version within a layout. It's something that we will work on in the next cycle probably. Okay.
I thought I understood, but I don't.
If the plugin does not contain support for an old SDK,
It will
so
not
the
be
version
added.
with that SDK will not
Be effective.
get
Yeah,
not be
will not be
But the new
affected.
version, I can still release a new version with the new one. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if
I show you an
want
example,
to
okay? Let me show you an example. Well,
Just need to make sure with your plugin developers that you know that you
Yeah.
choose not to
So
affect all
let's-
the plugins.
let's see something.
Yeah, but
it
first
could
show
be like
like
the new player plugin for Zevin has a new Google IMA SDK in it. So obviously we don't want people who have the versions in the store to be screwed because we added
Yeah,
a
but
player plug.
anyway, remember that if you're adding a plugin, it requires a build.
Yeah.
So no one in the store anyway will be affected.
That's all.
So you can see here, I pushed 3.1.0 of EGOF, and the minimum SDK is 5.0.1. If I go now to, if I will go now to River,
plugin versions will still require a build, right?
so if I go to River and I would choose a version that is older, this is iOS, this is iOS. So if I go here to a version that is older of iOS, let's say this one, I will go to plugin configuration, and you will see that it tells me that I need to do something that
You're talking about an SDK version.
cannot be used with the current app.
Okay, so it's like exactly how it is right now.
Yeah. You will need to go here and choose whatever you want to choose. These are they are coexisting, and there is a problem here: the connection between the build and you need to remember one thing: when you're adding a plugin, you need to build your version. Like this is the current
Like
guideline.
always, though.
Like always, doesn't matter if you add it from the UI builder. Doesn't
from
matter if
Zapp.
you add it from their.
My question is though, is where does UI Builder begin and this screen of Zapp end? That has nothing to do with UI Builder. Like, is this eventually going to be deprecated and we won't need
Yeah.
to, because in the general
You'll have versioning
settings,
and
So
like in the setting in general, you
so the idea
styles,
is
assets.
what we want to achieve now in the next couple of weeks is that you will be able to configure your entire app minus assets, styles, and localizations and builds. So all the rest
Is all in UI Builder.
in UI Builder. You want to
So
change
asset
assets,
styles.
but again, we're also reducing. You see now navigation, assets, and styling we remove. So
Yeah,
little bit
I'm
every
just
time.
asking to understand where
per
where-
screen apps should also be on the plugin level. Per screen assets and all the plugins that are screen, we don't
Yeah,
want to
I know
use
that.
SDK configuration for
But
them.
builds,
But builds you will need to
Build
build.
Sababa.
When you add
builds
the
and then configuration of the builds.
and the general configuration of a build. This is the build manager, and the UI builder is your
UI
layout
builder.
manager.
This would be the build manager and the layout manager.
And
I
yeah,
have a question.
and
So
we want to
eventually
bring it.
styles and assets should maybe be all the way in UI Builder. now.
It will.
Long
It
term.
will.
Like
It
first
will.
screen
First, let's
stuff?
release the
We
plugin
want to
manager.
make it by the
No.
end of the year, hopefully.
The idea is styles and assets per screen.
Yeah, like,
Yeah, per context.
I do it
contextual.
partly
Contextual.
here and partly UI there.
Like what I showed in navigation, like
It will
components.
also like clean a lot of unnecessary assets probably.
You won't see them.
You won't need them.
need
You don't
them.
care about
You
them.
don't
Because
need them.
right now
With these
they're automatically part of the build.
You can't-
Maybe they will be,
Yeah.
but
But-
no one will care.
I have a question regarding the need to create builds for the plugin. Let's say again, I added now YouTube through the UI builder, okay, and you see the entire process where it's loading. When it's loaded, do I need the build here as well?
I said about data sources, this is the only exception that
But
doesn't require a build.
Okay, because isn't it like a plugin?
It's a plugin, but it's a pure JavaScript plugin. So we can update it remotely and it doesn't require a build.
So
This is why it's loading.
yeah, that's fine.
Anything that is loading, you don't need to load.
And that's it. And everything coexists. So if you add a plugin on the version, whatever, blah, blah, blah. By the way, I think that we have a feature here. Let's do something. Let me
Question?
try something. If I go here, 1 second. No, I don't have a version like that. Yeah, shoot.
Click on admin for a second. The whole section of plugins, templates, audit, not audits, SDKs, plugins, and templates. And analytics. Will that remain, change?
This is admin features. It will, SDK for sure stays. It's where you manage the SDK and defaults.
Okay,
Plugins is for developer to see their manifest. It's not for the users.
Manifest too, to see what the minimum SPK
Yeah.
supported is.
Yeah.
I'm just asking, like, what's just if this is gonna change or only like.
So your plugin gallery is contextual to your app. It's what you want to use in your app, and this plugin is like showing the developer what we have.
If you need, if for example your role needs something that your role needs, it doesn't mean you should get a new role. It means that we should provide the capability.
Will SDKs area change in any way, or
Not missing anything.
What?
will the SDK
I don't
section
think
change in
there.
any way?
No,
Wait, I
audit,
cannot.
no,
see who touched
it's a
my
problem.
things.
It's a problem
Why?
because we have made because the idea is that you will have privilege for the things that you should do.
Yeah, but there's nothing for me to do in the admin
You can change
plugins
an SDK.
manifest. I can't change anything there.
No, but you can review.
But I can just check it and see what the minimum SDK supported of this this plugins. That's all I need in a manifest section.
Okay, no.
What was the question?
If
Audit
there's
support.
going to be any changes to like the admin SDK section or something like
Not
that.
something
Anything we
planned.
need to be like aware
Again,
of?
the question what will happen is only God will know.
No,
I'm talking. We are now working.
In terms of plans, and it relates to the new things that we are planning to do. So in terms of plans, we want that every time that we get to new cycles, there is an announcement and we say what we plan to do. Doesn't mean that we will do it. It just means that we will plan to do it for the next. But it's not like plan to do for. We don't know when.
We plan to plan.
We plan to do it for the next cycle, for the next few weeks.
That's good.
And at the end, we will tell you what we actually did. That's it. That's a
The
funny
way
one.
you're saying it is like you
It
already
cannot be
know there's
possible.
going to be a par between what
Can.
you planned and what you did.
Wait, so
Yeah,
you
I got
keep,
You got that right.
you keep saying that we're gonna attach layouts to versions. What do you, can you like expand on that? Like it's different than just the preview?
No, the idea is that you will be able to have different versions of the same project
Mm-hmm.
with connected to a specific layout.
Let's say you have one version that is waiting for submission in the store, that you need to make sure that it should be the production one for the Apple reviewer to review, and there is another version that is out there, and you want two different layouts because you decided you want a different thing, so you will be able to do that. Now you can.
But you can with the preview option, but it will
No,
it'll
but
be separate
you
from the
can't
preview
tell the
option.
Apple reviewer to use the preview.
Correct.
Yeah, a client asked me this the other week, A/B testing in the sense of I want half of my users to get this layout, and I want half of the users
Yoni
to get
started
another
working on
layout.
that. There's something that
No,
Yoni
no.
did with that.
No, there
I
is
don't
nothing.
think it's fully possible
Nothing?
from Apple and Google.
There's nothing.
Or it is, or there is nothing.
There is. I know
That's the
Apple has like
state of
rollout of
things.
versions. or
Doesn't
something.
matter how long we
But I
work on
understood there's
something.
one small server task
What?
left to do before releasing that to the A/B testing.
It
No.
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that for you to understand. This is why I'm saying also about planning and actual work. What you don't have, you don't have. It doesn't matter.
Can't we show Apple something and then just change it later?
Yes,
Like
you
in
can.
any app, you don't need UI builder. You can do it.
We do
can-
that already.
You can do
No,
it.
but do we have some kind of A/B testing mechanism like half and half
No.
users?
So navigation is going to be open to everyone on Thursday.
By the end of the week, yeah.
Friday. What is the end of the week?
I
Sunday.
don't know.
By the end of the week is
What is the
Friday.
week?
I don't know.
Friday. By end of the
Next
week,
Sunday.
globally,
If we're
is-
globally, Sunday's
no.
the end of the week.
no, end of the week globally is Friday, 8 p.m. Let's say 8 p.m. Pacific.
It's a
Global
Greenwich
calendar.
time.
That's
Pacific.
Hawaii
Hawaii
time.
Next
Hawaii
week,
time. Because they had a Memorial Day, it's another day. We said that
Yeah, another
we said that the navigation can be changed via the plugin. So we add the different plugin options. Let's say the normal side menu and the two-level side menu. But then still, in order to choose which navigation, you'll have to go into the navigation screen.
What I'm saying, when you have a dedicated, you're always trying to find the way to crack the system, change the state of mind,
No,
work. No, I'm seriously. I'm serious. Try to work in the
I want
flow
to
that we
understand the options.
present.
I want to understand the
No, the options doesn't matter. There is a flow that is recommended. If there is a way to crack the system, it doesn't mean that it's something that I care about and I want to solve. When you want to configure navigation, no, it's not funny because of course you will break things. If I'm teaching you something, this is the way I want to use it. The flow is to go to the navigation and to add it within the navigation as I showed.
We end up dealing with clients. Yeah, clients don't care if they're not working within the.
I don't
configuration
think
folder.
there is a one client that goes inside the plugin configuration section within a version.
Not today, but in the future maybe.
Not even tomorrow and not never. This is
Okay,
why we
not-
built the plugin
Not
gallery.
specifically plugin configuration, plugin in general, the whole breakage
No, but it's
or,
important.
break the system or not break the system.
Oh,
We need
but-
to know why he's asking and why he has the mentality. We need to know all the possible aspects and what can go wrong. Because that's
Everything
that's the
can
job.
go-
Everything can go wrong.
True. But that's just like the
Story
story.
of my life.
Everything can go wrong. Everything can go wrong. But this is why, look, a customer, he wants to make something work. He doesn't want to ruin his app.
No.
So if you teach him how he should do the things, he will follow it. He wants the app working. He doesn't try to hack your system.
that's
No.
it's just like new stuff.
When they are trying to do, when they are doing something, is because they tried something that didn't work for them or that was not well explained. They want to build an app. What they want to try to crack the system.
But it's not true.
I'll
That
give you an
their
example.
mentality is
Yesterday,
what-
yesterday, not here, but let's say here, Applicaster 2, we explained the spec how to do the DSP ad units for Kakuta. They didn't remember what we explained. They did it differently. It didn't work. They destroyed something in their app. So,
Okay.
you know,
Okay,
But
great.
but the fact that the system
But what-
the fact that the system gives an option to do something else, that's what
It
I'm
is, but
It's
it's-
true,
it's-
but
it's not-
the system will always have breaches. Luis, there is no
So we have to
bulletproof.
slowly try to think about these things.
No, you don't, because what your answer should be is not what you did and why you did. Your answer should be, in order to configure add unit ID, you go here and you put it here.
Here is the Zendesk.
This is the Zendesk article of how to configure add unit
But
IDs.
because of I know the other options that the system enables, I know to find what they did wrong. Understand what
I
I'm
think that it's a wrong, my opinion,
why
it's
I'm
a
also-
wrong state of mind. The state of mind should be, this is what you should do. Here is an article of how you should do it. This is a video of our training, and this is what you need to do.
He's talking about the position of we're governed by sales, urgency, SLA. I need this version right
What
now.
the sales will tell you to try to crack the system.
No, but
My
Yeah.
sales
what
Yeah, because client urgency.
let's go.
Client
Let's solve this issue in another way. What answer do you want to hear?
No, I'm just presenting.
No,
idea.
I'm really trying to.
I agree with you. There needs to be
I think we can
clear.
close there.
There needs to be clear definitions of how to do things.